You ready? What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Fabrication 101. I'm so thankful you guys tuned in today. We are back in the garage. We're still working on the Bronco project. I kind of want to get this thing done, so there's a few more little fabrication things I can work on here. Starting with a part that I'm super excited about is a Premier Power Welder. If you guys aren't familiar with what these are, it's an alternator driven stick welder and power source for some power tools there. That is, again, is driven off of your alternator, runs on like a 195 amp alternator. You can see, ooh, if it'll focus. 195 amps. I've used these a lot in the past. Obviously this one's brand new. I've had it for a while, just getting around to putting it in here. But I've used them a lot in the past. I've done quite a bit of welding with them. They do weld a little different if you're used to a normal DC stick welder, because it is an AC style stick welder. But they do quite a bit of work. They're awesome for trail repairs and doing stuff like that. So I'm gonna work on installing this today, and I've run into a bit of an issue already. You can see here's the Premier Power Welder alternator. Here is the stock alternator that came off of my 4BT. And they look the same, but the Premier Power Welder is a little bit larger. And it mounts basically the same, except for this mount is on the top, is quite a bit different. Nothing that really can't be dealt with fairly easily. So we're gonna work on trying to get this thing mounted today. Now, if I put this lower mount here in the stock location, my alternator is running into the oil filter on the engine. So I have installed an oil filter relocation kit from Pack Brake. Right now I just have the oil filter, that part on there. We'll figure out where I'm going to mount the rest of that after I finish getting the alternator and the rest of the Premier Power Welder mounted in there. So we'll stick the alternator in. It fits on its lower mount. I've modified that a little bit already to make sure I could get this to work. And we will, there's the lower mount, already a little bit different. Just basically made it a little bit longer, but we'll go ahead and stick the alternator in there real quick. And then we'll show you what we're gonna do next. All right, so there's not a lot, but there's just enough clearance down in there for the alternator to clear everything. It clears the bottom of the bolts on the lower hose inlet there, clears the fittings on the oil filter relocation, and it clears my existing tube coming out or into the turbo, my inlet tube there, just barely, maybe about a 1/8 of an inch or so, but it should be plenty. And I'm liking this because it allows me to use all of the stuff I've already done without having to remake some things. I thought I was going to have to mess with moving the turbo, changing out a bunch of my charge tubes. I don't think I'm going to have to do any of that stuff, so I'm going to work with this. So now what I need to do is build a mount. This used to be the upper alternator mount here, or where the upper mount mounted to, I guess I should say. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring a mount from here down to a tube that goes in between these two ears there. And I may even do one from underneath. I don't think it needs that. But we'll start with this upper one. It's gonna have to be a little bit curved because I do have a tube that runs from the outlet of the turbo down into the intercooler underneath right here. So I gotta make sure I leave room for that. So this tube is gonna have to go from a plate, which I'll make first, kind of down and then close to the turbo, or close to the alternator, down from there, close to the alternator, and into a tube that I'll just stick in between there. Should work pretty well, shouldn't be too difficult to manufacture. And then once I've got that done, we'll figure out where we're going to mount the control box. So my alternator bracket is all done. Fortunately, this engine has a serpentine system, so there's a belt tensioner, so I don't have to worry about making this adjustable so that to tighten the belt or adjust or whatever. So it makes it pretty straightforward to do. This is probably a little overkill. Anyway, it's all done. I'm going to throw some paint on it, and while it's drying, then we will start working on the mount for the control box. And that should be pretty straightforward. I think I've got a pretty good location for it right here in the front fender on the Bronco, so I think it'll go right in this area pretty nicely. I've got a fan controller that mounts here for my electric fan. I don't think they should interfere with each other, so we'll get to working on that. Alright, mount's pretty much done. It's just wedged in there right now. I still need to pull the unit back out, the control box, and go ahead and weld it in. I'm just going to weld it in a few places. It's not going to be fully welded. I'll probably just do a couple of short stitch welds around in some key spots without going crazy on it. I got lucky. I didn't quite clearance myself enough, but it does clear the corner of the box right here. You actually see it a little scratched a little earlier. I had to clearance the corner of my hood a little bit, but now it clears just fine. I thought when I started this, I thought I had plenty of room, but I think originally I had the box sitting down almost below this tube, and not right there. I do really like the way this is looking. The only thing is, I think Premier Power Welder makes a cover for this, but I don't think I have room for that now. But it is a waterproof unit, so it should be fine. I did some cool speed holes or dimple dies in there. So anyway, we'll pull the box out now and go ahead and get her tacked, make sure everything's squared up, and do a little bit of welding. Alright, it's all done. I think it came out pretty good. I did manage to kind of shove the plate down and in a little bit more. Hopefully that'll give me a little bit more clearance.
We have clearance, Clarence. Roger, roger.
From between the control box and the hood. Last thing left to do is clean it up a little bit more, get all the Sharpie marks off, and then get some paint on it. But I think I'm going to wait on that until I'm ready to paint a bunch of this other stuff up here, because this still needs to be painted, all this stuff here. This stuff kind of all needs to get painted. Need to pull the fenders off and finish up some more welds and that kind of stuff. But for now, I'm going to call this one done. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Fabrication 101. We will see you in the next video. And in the meantime, do me a favor, do yourself a favor and get out there and build something.